Okay, guys, I'm posting this video today because I have a bit of a power outage today. So I have uploaded this video instead that you can access. And if the power is back on for the live class, then we will continue with the live class. So, Sun and Earth Moon system, we wanted to look here at the basically the lunar phases. Okay, so this is our goal for today. We want to look at the lunar phases to be able to draw them. We also want to understand a bit of terminology, like when we say a moon is waning or waxing, or there's a crescent or gibbous moon, what does that really mean? So that they are the main things really for today. So let's just carry on with it. In the last lesson, we would have looked at gravity and momentum, and I want you to look at these words and see can you actually use them in describing the moon itself. Okay, so what you might do is you might pause the video and I will now explain how you would put these words here in a video or in a sentence. So let's talk about the moon. The moon is full of craters. So that'd be one word there that you could use to describe it. The moon reflects the sunlight that hits it. Okay, so the sunlight comes from the sun. When it hits the moon, it's reflected back. The moon is a satellite of the Earth. Okay, that means it orbits the Earth. Because of the strong gravitational pull of the moon, it is a large celestial body. It is pulling on the tides of the Earth, so the ocean tides. It causes waves on the Earth. The reflection of the light from the moon changes over 29 days, and this means that the moon appears to be larger or smaller in Earth's night sky. And this gives us the illusion of moon phases. The final word there is that the moon orbits the Earth. Okay, so it is a satellite, as I said, of the Earth. So how many did you get? Were you able to put all of those words in a sentence? If you did, then you must know a good bit about the moon. So well done. In relation to what you should know about the moon at this stage, okay, and this list here is on the right. The moon is a satellite, as we said. It takes 29 days for the moon to orbit the Earth and complete a revolution. After those 29 days, it starts again onto day one and it starts orbiting the Earth again. So the patterns of the lunar phases are actually quite predictable. Okay, so we can predict what the moon should look like in a day's time or a week's time in our night sky. The reason we see the moon is because sunlight is reflected off of its surface. Do you know the same way that light reflects off of mirrors? Well, it's the same idea. The sun is reflected off the surface of the moon. And this means that over the 29 days, there are different amounts of light reflected. So the moon appears to be changing shape. It appears to be getting bigger or it appears to be getting smaller. But actually, the moon itself never changes shape. It's just the amount of sunlight that it reflects is different. We call this, though, the phases of the moon. So, in relation to the phases of the moon, we are now going to look at some of the terminologies that you need to understand. So, just like the Earth orbits the Sun in a counterclockwise fashion, so against I suppose, the direction of time, um, we have the Moon moves in a similar counterclockwise fashion, so it goes around the Earth in this way. Um, we know that the moon as well. I suppose when we're drawing this out, it's very important to have an idea where the starting position is going to be. So for us, the starting position we're going to think about is the new moon. Okay, so the new moon is basically when you're not really seeing any moon in the sky. It's darkness until such time as light starts to reflect again. Okay, so the new moon is just black. Okay, so this will be on the left So our starting position is going to be here on the left. The when you were thinking about this, and there's many ways to try to remember the phases of the moon. One way to do this is actually to think about baseball. Okay, so this is the recommendation here. In baseball, actually, there are four bases. Okay, and when we're drawing in the lunar phases, you're going to be drawing in four phases on the left, the right, the top, and the bottom. Okay, so this would be the next tip here for drawing in the lunar phases. That when you're drawing this in, you'll need four bases to start with, and we're going to call the first base actually this position here on the bottom, and this is the second base, this is the third base. That'll help us identify the first quarter, which is one of the moons, in its phases, and the third quarter, which is another one of the phases of the moon. On the right, what do you reckon we'll call it, guys? On If you think about this in terms of brightness, right? So on the left, you have the new moon, and the new moon is, if we shaded it in, it would be completely shaded because it is completely dark. And on the right, it's actually going to be fully bright. Okay, so it's called the full moon, guys. So what else do we need to know? There are a bit of terminology here. As I said, you need to understand there's waxing and there's waning. So we'll start with waxing. Between the new moon and the full moon, what we know is that more and more light is being reflected, okay, from the moon. So the moon appears to be getting larger over this period of time. We call this waxing. Waxing is when the moon appears to be getting larger at night. Okay, so waxing from the new moon, which is, if you shade it in, it would be complete darkness, compared to the new moon, which is complete brightness. The brightness here is consistently increasing. However, when we're talking about waning, though, which is basically running from the full moon until the new moon, it's waning means that the light is it's there's less light. So it basically, what it means is that less light is being reflected until a point in time where it reaches the new moon again, and it's complete darkness. So when we talk about starting point and finishing point, the starting point is the new moon on the left, and the you go around into the full moon. Full moon is total brightness, and you're going to go back to the starting position, which is the new moon, which again is total darkness. So this is the finishing point here. So that's waxing and waning. The next thing you need to think about then is what we call the crescent and what we call the gibbous. So the crescent, I bet you know this one. A crescent is just like um, this is the typical moon shape that you probably know from drawing, maybe in primary school. So the moon shape, a crescent shape. Um, a waxing crescent, guys. What do we reckon this means, and what do we mean? What do we reckon a waning crescent means? Because these are two positions here on the lunar phases. The waxing crescent means that the crescent here, which is this light reflection from the moon, waxing means that it's getting bigger. So the waxing crescent means that it's actually going to, as the days goes on, more light is going to be reflected. The waning crescent, though, means that less light is going to be reflected over a period of time until eventually that the moon is going to be in complete darkness. So that's the next thing. The next thing then after that is the gibbous. So when more than a quarter of the moon is lit up, we call this a gibbous. Okay, so a quarter, in this case, if we picture a circle in front of us, you would basically have a half um, so because you're not seeing a half in front of you, if you get what I'm saying. Okay, so you'd have more than a half would be a gibbous of the moon. So if I divided this in two, okay, or rather, if I had one side which was basically bigger than the other half of this, then that would be considered gibbous. A waxing gibbous means that it is getting bigger, so it's growing in size, and then the waning again means that it's getting less bright. So what you're going to do to finish off this lesson is you're going to watch this video. It is from Moo Moo Math and Science, which is a good channel actually if you want to understand any science kind of topics. And you'll be answering questions for me on that.